Now, everything old is new again. America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
For the newest, biggest Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey circus ever. You'll soar to new heights of precision and daring. Your sides will ache with laughter. You'll thrill to the danger. And witness the mystery of the colossal King Tusk. See it, live it, you'll never forget it.
Welcome to Everything Old is New Again. This is Douglas Viviani, joined by the ever festive David Cohen.
And why am I festive
You
today?
are festive because this week we are going to dive into the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus and talk about the behind the scenes. What's it like to be in the circus? I mean, let's face it, in the 1980s, did you hear that business about King Tusk?
Who's King Tusk?
King Tusk was a huge elephant and had 6 foot...
Aren't they usually huge?
But this one had 6 foot tusks, ivory
Wow.
tusks. And that was the star, or the animal star, of the circus back in the 80s. Yet earlier this year, after being a mainstay in the circus for over about 135 years, Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey has announced that the Circus Elephants are being retired.
Yes.
And will no longer be part of the circus. So this week, there's the new information about the circus. And the circus comes back in town, every year. So it's just going on. And again, the circus started way back when in 1881. We'll go into that. Of course, you love the history. You're going to do that. But before we do...
You don't have a definition of circus so people understand what we're talking about?
I have better than a definition. I have a friend, another gentleman that we can say is part of our rogues gallery of guests of Everything Old is New Again, Rat Pack himself, a gentleman that was under the big top for almost a year himself. So behind the scenes, he worked for the circus, and his name and good friend of mine is Arthur Wobig. Arthur, welcome aboard.
Welcome.
Thanks for being here.
What would you say you were doing? You were invited to join the circus, and why did you do that? Like, who does this?
Who joins the circus, Arthur?
Especially you have no act.
Well, I graduated college back in May 1986, and looking for a job, I was asked to join the circus. We'll get into that another time, but...
There was a nice reason. Well, there's another show as to why and what you were doing there.
And, at the time, just coming out of school, not knowing what I wanted to do, it gave me an opportunity to join the circus, travel across the country, and see the world.
As a roustabout, you're very similar to Elvis Presley himself, I would say. Mike, you familiar with that? Listen to this guy go.
Make it tight.
The movie Roustabout.
What's a roustabout?
He's telling you.
Do it right. Makes me kind of feel like I want to fight. But it's simple as I can't get mad. I'm a roustabout.
You did all that stuff, right? You tied things and you cleaned up after elephants. And tell us what you did on a daily basis.
Yeah, I had to go down and just get hired. I showed up at their winter quarters back in December 1986, and just showed up and said, I'm looking to join the circus, and they hired me on the spot.
It was that easy? You just go up and say, I want to join
Where?
the
Did you do
circus?
this in Florida, in their home, their winter home in Sarasota?
Sarasota.
Okay.
Outside of Venice, just in that particular area.
Did they tell you anything about the history when they hire you?
The gentleman brought me into an office. He said there was a bunch of forms filled out. He goes, just sign. I signed 3 pages of forms. He said he'd fill out everything else. And he brought me in. He brought me into the arena where, they're sort of working on the equipment before they start traveling. And I was assigned to Ring 3. Ring 3.
That's big right away, isn't it?
As a laborer. Now, my responsibility was, in the winter quarters, was just to sort of paint the equipment, get everything ready for eventually going on the road. And I was there for about a month, just preparing. The pay was $155 a week. And while you were in winter quarters, you got 60% of that. So it was
that's the greatest show on earth.
Tough living.
Who got the other 40%?
You had to living on the train. You paid $1 a day to live on the train.
Wow.
And they had a food card that was subsidized. And
now they own their own train. So when they go around, first of all, let's back up. The winter quarters since 1927 is where? Winter quarters for the circuit. The Ringling Brothers.
On or about Sarasota, Florida.
Right. And so they then take, after you rehearse and practice what you're supposed to do, right? They take the show on the road and they travel by their own train, correct?
Yep.
Just like you see in Dumbo. Remember Dumbo? The movie?
Yeah. So you had to pay $1 every day to be on the train.
Right. There were some people who, had their own transportation. Some of the other performers had RVs.
Okay.
So what do you do all the day? Like you're traveling from Florida now to wherever, to Atlanta. What do you do during the day on the train?
Well, some of the trips are half a day. Some of them are 3 and 4 days. There was a trip from Virginia to Madison Square Garden that we were on the train for, virtually 4 days. And there's nothing to do. There was no internet. There was no cell phones. There was no TV on the train. There's no radio. So you played cards and you hung out and partied.
A lot of beer.
Yeah, just hanging out. It got very stinky and smelly on the train.
Yeah, I was going to say,
were the animals in the train? Were they in the coach class with you, or?
Well, some of my car mates I would consider animals. We had a bunk, and a bunk had just like the old Abbott and Costello shows, where just a leather curtain with a box with a lock on it that you could put your belongings in and put a lock on it, and you did a lot of sleeping, a lot of hanging out, a lot of just reading and doing what you had to do.
And what's the food like? Like you go to the food cart, what do you do? What do you get for a choice?
Yeah, it would be comparable to a very poor cafeteria at a college. And not
yummy.
Just a bad deli, just a real bad deli.
How do they stay in shape? It sounds like a bad diet then. How do they...
Just because you worked crazy.
Yeah.
The shows were long. The weekends, they called them six-packs. They were 3 shows on Saturday, 3 shows on Sunday. And then pack was you'd get up and leave town. So there were times where you're up at 8:30 in the morning and you're on Sunday until 4 a.m. packing up the train.
Wow.
To get to the next
And do
city.
anybody now we're not talking about performers, but anybody, let's say in your car, in your general area, what'd you call it, laborers?
Yeah.
Do they actually enjoy this work? I mean, it sounds like a silly question, but it doesn't sound like you would enjoy it, but maybe, I don't know.
Well, there were... me coming in with a different motive. Everyone had a secret. Everyone had a different background. There was a different reason why they were running away from family. They were running away from the law. They were getting on the train to take the trip to the next city, get a couple bucks, and
So the turnover must have been pretty significant then.
Yeah, there were certain friends that I made that came from carnival backgrounds. And they were aspiring to maybe have their own carnival of their own. They were living and learning the circus life, and that's where they came from. Different than living on Long Island and New York and understanding what your aspirations were.
So it was their college, let's put it that way.
Yeah, and this was there to learn. And, there was still one gentleman that I was in the circus with that he's a Facebook friend of mine, and he stayed and he sort of progressed up to the level of running one of the trains, and that was his aspirations. But mostly, again, a very transient group with no one ever asked, why are you here? And if you probe too much.
Because that might be your last question.
Yeah, it was a tough crew, and I wasn't necessarily a tough guy. So.
Right.
That's so interesting. We're here talking with Arthur Wobig, who was behind the scenes of Ringling Brothers Circus. He was there for, we're going to say, a little less than a year. In what year approximately was this?
December 1986. Into the following fall.
Okay, so and I mean, no television, no entertainment. I mean, it was you had to get to know these people and enjoy their company, I guess.
Yep.
All right, so we'll be back. We're going to enjoy each other's company for the next hour, talking about behind the scenes of the circus on Everything Old is New Again. Come on back. Here's the typical music. There you go. How sick are you of this song? We are back. We have another 2 minutes here for our LI News Radio listeners, as well as the podcasters at everythingoldisnewagain.biz. Arthur, I just wanted to run by you the idea that you have 2 children now, and they're hearing the story for the first time, or have they heard these stories about the circus ad infinitum? They've heard the stories of the circus, and as my kids have grown up, they've told their friends. My
my dad was in Ringling Brothers, and they thought absolutely they were crazy, that there's no way your dad was doing what I was doing, shoveling crap for elephants in the circus.
Right.
But then maybe they'll listen to this. And
it's something, I don't know what it is. To me, the circus, you tell me, Dave, it's something like like that you see a car accident on the side of the road and you just got to slow down and look at it. I don't know if it's really that exciting. I always go to the circus expecting a great time and always leave saying, it was okay, but it wasn't, I don't know. Is it from the movies? Is it, what's it about the circus that is that intriguing to all of us?
Well, to me, it's different kind of entertainment than you see anywhere else. And especially if you're going with kids, I mean, you know, it makes it more fun just to see their reactions to it. And I think some of the performers, the acrobats, that's really pretty thrilling because they're basically not working with a lot of safety gear or nets or anything. And I kind of liked it. You know, especially the smaller ones, the Big Apple Circus and things like that. I keep hitting the mic. I'm very excited about the circus.
I'm a big fan of the circus, too. I'm thinking one day that someone needs to do the history of the circus. There's no book to that. So this is my entree into that. Let's see what everyone thinks about my book in about 20 years. Everything Old is New Again. Come on back. We're going to continue talking about the circus with Arthur Wobig. We're going to now go into the performers behind the scenes.
You're listening to Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show, with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Welcome back to Everything Old is New Again. That's the unmistakable theme from Dumbo or a circus theme. And we're talking about the circus behind the scenes with a new entry to the Everything Old is New Again Rogues Gallery family. Arthur Wobig, member of the Rat Pack that's growing and growing here on Everything Old is New Again. By the way, we're excited to announce that we have expanded as well, not just the Rogues Gallery, but our affiliate network has expanded to KLTF, which is 960 AM in Morris County, Minnesota. We're listened to every Sunday at 12 p.m. David, I know you're a big fan of Minnesota Vikings, so that's...
Yes, very excited to have them on board. And definitely.
It's great to be expanding in that area. I love that area of the country, and we're looking forward to hearing from you, anyone and everyone that's in Little Falls, Minnesota, or in Morris County. Feel free to contact us at oldnewagain at AOL.com. Oldnewagain at AOL.com. Arthur Wobig is going to take us now behind the scenes of the circus performer. Now, I'm going to just play a clip here from a movie from the 30s called Freaks, if anybody's seen this. And they talk about a performer's code. So let's hear what that is first.
You laughed at them, shuddered at them, and yet, but for the accident of birth, you might be even as they are. Their code is a law unto themselves. Offend one, and you offend them all.
Interesting. So they assume in that movie, and it might be a different era, that the performers, or at least, now these were the freak performers, so it's a little different than the trapeze artists, but that the performers had some kind of a code together. Now these would be the performers and people that are in the circus that are there for a long period of time. Did you run into any of that with, I don't know, the ringmaster or any of the stars, or even just the dancers of the circus?
Yeah, there was a certain group that... some of the dancing girls, some of the clowns had been there for a while. They were traveling, and that was their career, and they were staying there. The ringmaster was on contract for 2 years. I would consider him a cruise ship performer, a bad Broadway performer who hated the job. He just put it on and did what he had to do and got the hell out of there when it was done.
Right.
Became friendly with him. However, again, really didn't give you that energy, that excitement that I am the ringmaster at Ringling Brothers and Motor.
Did he also have to pay $1 to ride the train with you?
You had to see his train car. It was pretty good.
Oh. So the performers had different setup than you.
Yes.
I see.
And, some of the performers had families, so they had bigger cars and setups, but they were impressive.
But when you see this movie, the greatest, if you ever seen it, the greatest show on earth, which is with I believe Charlton Heston and Jimmy Stewart, and it's this tremendous camaraderie, and we all know each other, and we're all practicing together, and one for all and all for one. It's probably more like a W.C. Fields movie, I guess, right?
Yeah, very much so. There was one gentleman who had been with the circus, one of the workers, one of the management of the animal handlers, who had been there for 50 or 60 years, and actually he was in that movie.
Which one?
Show.
The Greatest Show on Earth?
Yeah. He's got a little clip in it. He always bragged about how he was in the movie.
But so now you got to run into some of these people, such as, who was the main character then? It was Gunther Gable Williams?
Yeah, Gunther Gable Williams traveled.
He was an animal. He was an
animal handler.
Right.
Again, very, he's got the history back to Germany, and, he was recruited through the circus, and he had his wife performing, and his daughter and his son, and, I think the daughter did a seal act or something crazy. Could care less, didn't want to be there, an 18-year-old beautiful woman. He's been with and has.
He was with them before Siegfried and Roy, right?
Yeah.
He was the animal trainer before then.
Yeah.
Siegfried, right, sorry.
But he was like the first, like Fabio, right? He had the blonde hair. I mean, he was like this,
and he was in shape,
figure.
and he barely wore a shirt.
Yeah,
right.
So what was he? I mean, you didn't run into him at all.
No, you didn't even talk to him. You didn't make eye contact.
There was no talking to Gunther. Stay away from Gunther.
Oh, he was just a short-tempered, and things didn't go right. Particularly within the aspect of the job I had, which was cleaning up after his animals while they were performing. So. Did
he ever have any cuts and bruises and problems with the animals? Did it always go well? You have any idea?
No, the animals had problems with some of the animal handlers, but not with Gunther. He had the respect. He trained them since birth, probably.
So they were his tigers. It wasn't like they just brought on any tigers.
Absolutely.
God, I hope not.
No.
Yeah. No, I'm just interested to see how they even.
Here's some wild tigers, Gunther. Go for it. Train them.
Let's listen to a little something from Dumbo and trains tracks here if we can. Bring us to a screeching halt here with this song, if you remember this from the movie. I bring it up because it transfers us over to the animals, and they're not any longer having elephants. You saw the elephants being handled. Just remember that the circus began in 1881, and their biggest attraction was Jumbo, the world's largest elephant, and was the star of the circus back then. Okay. We saw that in the 80s. We had the promo with King Tusk, and now they're no longer. Can you go just a little smidge? Like, how were they dealt with, these animals or the elephants?
Some of the elephants were very temperamental. They got spooked by music, and they had to be. These are huge animals that would run amok occasionally. You've heard stories about animals breaking out, and they'd be handled how they should. No other way to handle them. They had. So
the idea is that Ringling Brothers may not be abusing them, but the idea is just doing this is abuse.
Yes, I mean they had to be chained up.
Right, and they got to be chained up and standing on a train going round and round the country. I mean, that's...
Did they have to pay $1 to be on the train also? I'm really fascinated by the paying $1 to be on the train.
It's probably a good idea, I'm going to say, that these elephants are no longer involved. I mean, let's face it. I hate to say that because it's great to see them, but...
Yeah, but it's just cruel.
It's just not right. Yeah. All right, now, turning to that, or turning back from that, I know there was Mercury Morgan, who was a professional bike performer. You got the Dancing Girls, you got the South African Trapeze Troupe. All these characters, are they in the same cars as you? Because they're not really headliners, or are they?
No, there's a sort of a pecking order of the importance. The BMX bikes were big at that particular time. Mercury Morgan jumped over an elephant. The big exciting. He did that
on a motorcycle.
No, on a bicycle.
Oh, bicycle.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, and he was very much proud and very. Into himself and the service he was bringing to the circus.
Right.
The Dancing Girls were the hardest working. They were in every scene doing everything, from spinning on ropes to riding on elephants and horses and dancing and doing whatever they had to do. And they weren't paid well. They were sort of looking this as a stepping stone to something bigger and better. The clowns are almost at the same as the Dancing Girls. They had to go to clown college. Very much took their craft very serious, hilarious. There were no grumpy clowns. They loved being there. They loved they dreamt of this their whole life.
See, that's who I would seek out on the train.
Yeah.
Like, I'd want to hang out with the clowns because, come on, they got to be fun.
Well,
right?
birds of a feather.
Right. They get me, Doug. They get me.
Well, they're not that Emmett Kelly with that, that if you remember, this is an older clown, but he was very famous. He had that smile, the downturned smile. So I guess that was an inside joke.
Clown, yeah.
I mean, these clowns were really characters.
And most of the performers would not sort of socialize with the workers. And
even the clowns or the girls?
The clowns would. The dancing girls would. They sort
nice.
of. Yeah.
Is anybody dating anybody? What's happening on the social front there? Generally speaking, I mean, how could they socialize with anybody but somebody that's in the circus?
Yeah, there wasn't. Just everyone was so busy, and I guess I don't recall. Besides the existing relationships and families.
So it's interesting. They had an agenda. They were there for a reason. No one was really in this level, planning to be in this circus for the next 20 years. No. It wasn't necessarily a career. It was, all right, we're going to kind of do this and move on.
Put it on a resume and let's see whether I can become a Rockette someday.
Right.
Whether I can be the head clown. Sure. Can I join maybe a local Big Apple circus and be the top guy? And there are some Ringling Brother clowns that have graduated to.
Oh, this Bello has done tremendous for himself. The guy that's got the hair that goes straight up. He's on his own now. He almost has his own circuit. He's got his own act that he travels the country with. He was tremendous. I remember watching him. Anyway, let's. This circus goes back long ways. Marx Brothers have the movie Marx Brothers in the Circus, and let's listen to a little bit of the Tattooed Lady. We'll be back on Everything Old is New again right after these commercials.
She has eyes that folks adore so, and a torso even more so.
L.I. Geek, Long Island's up-close and personal sci-fi fantasy convention, is just around the corner. Taking place April 2nd and 3rd at the Ramada Plaza in Holtzville, New York, the Long Island Geek Convention, or L.I. Geek for short, is an annual gathering of science fiction and fantasy fans from around the tri-state area. This year's guests include Greg Grunberg from The Force Awakens, Big Ass Spider, Heroes, and Lost, Rekha Sharma from The 100 and Battlestar Galactica, Rachel Grant from Die Another Day, Tor Group, and Star Hike, and Gil Gerard from Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. Visit LongIslandGeek.com to get more information and to register. Celebrate a universe of incredible science fiction and fantasy fandom in a fun-sized convention that isn't just a giant flea market with long lines. LongIslandGeek.com.
Now, back to America's entertainment pop culture talk show. Everything Old is New Again, with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Children of all ages, John Ringling North welcomes you to the greatest show on earth.
I beg to differ. The greatest show on earth is Everything Old is New Again every weekend. But the second greatest show on earth, I would say, would be the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. And we are back to discuss behind the scenes of the circus with our friend Arthur Wobig. And, of course, David Cohen is here as well. And we're going to just kind of go, roll our sleeves up and go to the circus via the magic wand of radio and see what it's like, not just watching the circus from the stands, but what's going on? Is there like controlled chaos or what? What's happening behind the scenes? So we'll start with the little Ringling Brothers intro and go from there and see what it sounds like. This is it. The most modern one.
Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages.
Is that the ringleader talking about?
He sounds into it.
What? That sounded good.
Is that a fart in the background? Did you hear that?
No.
No, you didn't hear that? Did you hear that?
No.
I'm not crazy.
Yeah, you are, but maybe you heard.
Play it again.
No, we'll go. Let's go into the circus. What happens, Arthur? It's starting now, and the gates go up. You can keep it playing. And what? I don't know. What's happening from your perspective?
Well, I had two different responsibilities at the circus. My main and first responsibility was working as a laborer in Ring 3, and I was responsible for everything within that particular ring as the show went on. And that would include taking care of the animals, picking up after the animals, meaning If there's piddle going on as they're performing, I got to go out with sawdust and a broom and shovel and pick it up. Or
was there a time, like, how were there instructions, like, get out there, you need to clean it off in like 10 seconds?
Just, you were sort of in the dark. There's always the spotlights. There's always something going on in ring 1, nothing in ring 3. So
okay, I see.
If the cleanup is going on when the act is happening, now elephants, they lift their tails and it's showtime. You have to get out there, and the skill was to try to catch the elephant with your snow shovel before it hit the ground.
Really?
Okay. And again, I was 6 weeks at Madison Square Garden, where I had friends wondering what the hell I was doing in the greatest show on earth.
Back up. I remember the rumor went out. Arthur and I worked at McDonald's before this in high school,
right.
And rumor went out. Arthur's in the circus, and okay, whatever. Then like 3-4 months later, there we would hear he's going to be in Madison Square Garden. Let's get going. So we go, and we expected to be on a tightrope walk, and we expected to be in this cannon shot out of the cannon.
And there he is with a shovel.
And the elephant's coming around. He's going to shovel his and he was proud, big smile on his face because he actually caught the poop as it came out of the elephant. That was the trick.
But that's got to be hard to do, right? I mean,
well, it's a lot of poop. And
is it heavy? Is it
heavy? And the crowd goes wild. And this particular time, Doug could have even been there. If you get a little too close and you hit the sphincter of the elephant, he doesn't enjoy that.
Oh, I wouldn't either.
I got kicked once with the full shovel.
Oh!
Flown back. I mean,
no.
It just connected with my leg, flew back probably 8 or 10 feet, and
wow.
the shovel of poop went all over me, and people could care less about what act was going on because that was the funniest
you
thing.
became the main attraction.
That was
a friend of ours every year of a Christmas party every year is a friend of ours that brings that story up every so often.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you okay? I mean, physically, other than having
crowd went wild.
Really, if you've got to rate all the animal poops, it was more like hay coming out of them. It wasn't really.
I see.
Well, what about like these performers? Does any things happen like with that, or like I don't know, these acrobats? You see sometimes they don't perform.
Listen, nonstop chaos, insanity. The nets would break, lights would go out. I mean, the trapeze group was from South Africa, was the worst trapeze group. The guy could never land the the drum roll would play, he would do his triple flip and end up in the net every time. And they'd give him a second chance, and he would get up there and just try a double, and he'd miss it again.
And what would let's say on the train that night, what would he be like? Depressed?
Well, he'd be in the elite car. I wouldn't see, but
maybe he shouldn't be. But
he's paid to perform. That's the job he wanted to do. And
paid to underperform, apparently.
He couldn't do it, so he'd get a little bummed out. There'd be some libation going on, trying to curb his misery.
And what about these girls when they got to change outfits all the time? Or I mean, that's going to be a drag.
Yeah, I mean, behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's a drag for them, Doug. Shoveling the poop from an elephant. Right. He had it easy.
They have to change their outfit from the red one to the green one.
Yeah, I mean, the preparation behind the scenes is, there's curtains with the animals, and the animals are coming, and the cages are coming. As you see them come off stage, they're going right into a cage, or the elephant's brought back.
Well, let me ask you a question. You've got the dogs. You got them. There used to be monkeys. I don't think do they do monkeys?
No, I didn't have any.
They had dogs. They've got
monkeys.
They had seals, dogs, llamas, horses.
Where
tigers,
are they?
lions.
There's a separate for all of them.
Yep, cages, tanks, whatever it may be.
Right.
So
okay. Wow. Okay. So instead of,
but did you have to clean up other poop, or just you were just assigned to the elephant sphincter, basically?
That was the top job. But no, they would pee also, and elephant pee is a lot. I mean, it's gallons of pee.
Yeah.
Again, the horses would pee and crap.
Now,
the llamas would pee and crap.
Are you supposed to kind of this sounds silly, but you see something like that, are you supposed to kind of make sure the audience doesn't see this happen that often? Like, you're supposed to stand in front of you?
Like Disneyland.
They want it picked up as quickly as possible.
Right.
They don't want it sitting there. They don't want the performers slipping on it.
Right,
they don't want
course.
the horses or other animals slipping on it. So regardless of whether or when it happens, you're cleaning it up at that particular time.
But they do it in such a great way. I mean, it's not something that stands out to me as I think of the circus of that. So
I saw a circus where the guy was actually kicked and went back like 8 or 9 feet, and all the poop went on. No. Until something like that happens, no, I agree. You don't really notice.
And who trains you to do this? Like, who says, okay, what you just said, try to catch it before it? I mean, did they say that to you?
There was a person that had been there 1 week longer than me that I guess had a little bit more experience. experience.
So just to be clear for Doug, there's no training video in an orientation room you go to that shows you catching on the fly, those sort of skills.
No, you just sort of live and learn.
But now, the net is set up by you too, or no? So a laborer.
They would all of a sudden
that's dangerous.
They would have a clown act going on, and the front rows. They'd be working the crowd, and
the lights are out elsewhere.
Yeah, and the nets would be rolled out, set up, put up, and before you know it, boom.
What about any big accidents that ever happened? That's a problem.
I think we heard one. Yeah.
Well,
there was one particular time where there was a special that was being taped for a Barbara Mandrell special, and she is there, and one of the animal handlers wanted to be on camera, so he took the lead on one of the horses that were very temperamental. It was one of the big Clydesdale type horses, and didn't really know how to handle it, and the horse took off, because there was a different handler, and he got trampled. Didn't hit anything, but got caught. His hand got caught in the rain, tore his finger. And he was in the hospital for a few days, and he did come back. He was fine.
So it seems to me that I've seen the more human acrobatic kind of stuff, and I think they're getting away a little bit from the big animals. Maybe they're still doing the what would you say? There's some birds and
the horses are still big.
Horses are still. I guess that would be the biggest one, but
dogs.
That's always tough dealing with animals. You don't know what's going to happen, especially on the stage with 15,000 people watching them. They got to react unexpectedly, right? So. Unexpectedly, we have a commercial here. We'll be right back right after this on Everything Old is New Again as we go behind the scenes of the circus. This is Arthur Wobig presenting it to us. We'll have a lot of fun. Everything Old is New Again. All right, so we've got a couple more minutes here behind the scenes here for the LI News Radio and podcast individuals. Arthur, we talk about snafus. Any other snafus, things that you saw that were just beyond belief that, oh my goodness, this just happened and these characters got to fix this problem?
The show never stops. So regardless of what happened, whether a net broke or whatever it may be, they just continued on. They moved on. They just would make whatever adjustments they had to sort of on the run.
Now, who's talking to who? Like you say, the ring master is not really in charge. So who's managing? Like, okay, Arthur, go out to this ring, and do you know this already? Like, who's on his hand doing that?
Yeah, there's general managers and operations managers that are cueing the whole performance. From the music to the performers, when to open the curtain to march out. You
think they're probably doing it electronically now? People with something in their ear to say, this is the next act?
Yeah, everything was very much hand signals and waving and shouting and, let's go, let's get it going. Now.
Right, and now they're probably doing it...
headsets and...
Wow. Yeah. Now, these girls that have the hair. Do you ever see the girl? Do you ever see the girls hanging with the hair? We'll talk about this in the next section. Are all these tricks actually legit, or is there some stuff going on like it's a magic trick? Like are they really hanging from their hair, or what's going on there? For example.
Yeah, everything is. They sort of search the world for these acts, and a lot of foreign acts coming from small circuses around the world, and I don't remember any sort of, you may have been disappointed with the act itself, but it's all legitimate.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. We'll be back on Everything Old is New Again and one more time to talk about the circus and what goes on behind the scenes. Everything Old is New Again. Arthur Wobig, David Cohen, Douglas Viviani.
This is Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Do you think Lucinda the fat lady weighs 800 pounds?
She's 400 at the tops.
Do you think the tattooed woman was tattooed by headhunters in Borneo?
She's from Pittsburgh. It took her 9 years to ink herself.
Jacob, the world's run on tricks. Everyone plays.
Welcome back to Everything Old is New Again. We're talking about the circus. That's a little clip from No Water for Elephants, a recent movie about the circus, and they're talking about the circus back in I believe it was the 30s, where the circus was totally different back then, right? I mean, you had, I hate to say it, but they use the word, freaks for people that were deformed. They had the lady with the beard, they had the tattooed lady, the fat lady, they would call her the tall tall man, the short man, Tom Thumb.
Strong man.
I remember my grandfather actually gave me, as a kid, and this goes back to the 60s, and he had gotten it when it was in the 30s, a souvenir of a ring of I guess it would be the tall man. And the ring was like, you could almost fit around as a kid's wrist because it was so big, and that was the souvenir, So they focused on something different. They weren't focused on animals. They were focused on human oddities. You had the Siamese twins, right? Chang and Eng, the Siamese twins. So, of course, that's thankfully gone by the wayside. But the circus was different back then, and there were tricks. That's what they're just kind of describing there in that clip. We're here with Arthur Wobig, and he spent a little less than a year with the Ringling Brothers, and I think the circus has evolved over time from where we were then. But I think the idea that you want to have some fun, even though you're on this crowded train with some smelly individuals that are drinking beer and you're sleeping in a little 2x4 little bed, you still want to have some fun. Is there any fun that goes on, antics that goes on while you guys are traveling or doing
there's
performing?
Particular stories I've had over the last 30 years when anyone comes up, if I need a conversational piece, you're meeting new friends for the first time and you need a story. And I mean, the biggest trick, the little pranksters, tigers pee about 30 feet. So we would get water pistols and hide behind the cages. And when people would walk by, the other performers, they wouldn't know the difference. You'd spray and they would, damn, I just got peed on by a tiger. So that that was always fun.
And they would know and they would know what you just said. The preamble is that the tigers go for quite a number of feet,
right?
So they would just fall right into it.
And just things we would see. Piccolo, one of the animal handlers, was an ex-clown midget who was now working with the circus, traveling with the circus. And there were times we'd go to arenas and he would have to hold stakes to put the tent, and you'd see Piccolo holding a stake with a bodybuilder with a 16-pound sledge, and you would just wonder what was going to happen.
And if he missed or whatever, is Piccolo going to become the stake?
Just had all the confidence in the world. So they were Madison Square Garden was incredible. It was 6 weeks. I had been promoted at that point from a laborer to a rigger, and I spent a lot of time up in the rafters. And we always joke because I would be up there just in a pair of jeans and a T-shirt, hanging the rigging and making repairs. And at the time, they were taking the asbestos out of the ceilings, and there'd be people in hazmat suits up there walking around, and I'd be like, "What are they wearing?" And wow. Just questioning whether I'm going to be a statistic with the asbestos,
wow.
But. It was.
You were safer cleaning up the elephant.
Yeah,
poop.
getting kicked by an elephant.
That was the raise you got. That was the promotion you got.
you can. I got $165 a week at that.
Now, if you stayed with them, is there it's a silly word to say career path, but I mean, is there a path that you would have gone on? Where would you have progressed to?
Eventually,
the Cancer Award, I think, from the asbestos.
The friend I was with at the circus, the gentleman that started as one of the. I saw a circus special a couple years ago, and he was interviewed, and he was responsible for the operations of one of the train cars. And that was a big job as an operations manager, from the day you break down to the day you get to the next town and get everything on and off the train, to all the concessions, to all the food and the living quarters and everything else. And
for what you're saying, just for one of the cars, though?
No, for the whole train.
Oh, for the whole train.
The whole
okay.
train.
Yeah. That is a big job.
Again, still indirectly keep in touch with him on Facebook. He's retired in Costa Rica right now, so he's, I guess, did okay for himself. I guess he's not doing any circus there, but yeah, it was an incredible experience, I would say, versus joining the Peace Corps, joining the circus. When I left the circus, I was in the best shape of my life, just overworked.
Right.
I had lost all my fingernails from being a rigger and dealing with the tackle blocks and the wires and the ropes. My hair was the longest it had ever been at the time, because you can let yourself go in a particular situation like that.
There's no barber in the group, right? You'd have to do that on your own time, whatever.
You would. I traveled from Florida up through Virginia, New York, back down Philadelphia, West Virginia, and then headed out west through Texas, Tucson, Arizona. Eventually, I left. And, you got to see small arenas, big cities, large cities.
So when a show is over, or let's say do they play during the week, and you usually play at nighttime, right?
Right.
And the weekend you have 2, 3, 6 shows, whatever it might be. But there is downtime. I guess a better way to say it is, what do you do during your downtime?
If you're in a city, you'll go catch a movie. You'll go to a local restaurant. Again, you didn't have a lot of money.
You had free time. You said, okay, got to be back by such and such a time. That's it.
Yep, that's it. Once you pack up the train car after that last show in that last town, you had time. If it was, it could be 5 a.m. when you're done, but the train may not leave until noon. You don't want to shower on the train. Maybe find someplace else.
Right. Now, what happens if you miss the train?
Well, many people did. Yeah,
they didn't care. They would leave when they left.
People would miss the train, and then we'd see them in the next town. They got a ride, or
Right.
somehow they got caught up. So,
but they wouldn't be waiting around. Hey, Arthur's, not here. Let's hold up.
We about halfway through my tour. Traveling on the train was very hard. So me and 3 of my friends in the circus bought a school bus, and we transported the motorcycles for the performers. Because they couldn't put them on the train. So we took all the seats out of the bus, and we traveled halfway through the country. The first church of Newport News, Virginia, a light blue bus that we used boxes for curtains, but it gave us time off the train just to sort of travel and sort of deflate.
Right. Well, where do these trains, if you're going into New York City, for example, or, certain cities, Providence, whatever, the train goes to the train station and that's it. Like, where do they dock this train, so to speak, after that?
It was in Long Island City, right before you go through.
So there are places in each town where trains, like private trains can kind of
They would just parked and, we would take the subway back to the train. I stayed.
How do you get the elephant on the subway car? That would be a bit problematic.
And what about prancing the elephants through New York City? That used to be a huge thing, right? They do that in other cities as well?
That was the walk through the Midtown Tunnel. They would bring them through because the train would be parked on Long Island, and they had to get the animals to Madison Square Garden.
They would walk them.
Yeah.
A couple of miles.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, but what about like in Providence or in Rochester, wherever? Are there other facilities where you would walk through as like an advertisement for the show?
Madison Square Garden was unique. First, the animals stayed in Madison Square Garden, in the basement of Madison Square Garden. So once they did their walk, they were there.
Right.
A lot of other arenas, we'd set up tents outside the arena. And that's where they would be for the 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days that we were there. Some, again, they did have facilities within the arena that the animals could
So that's
stay in.
not like a thing like in every city we're going to do the parade or the walk.
No. It was just unique to New York because we had to get them there.
Because I think it would be kind of a good thing to promote the show, and I know that P.T. Barnum did do that back in the day. He would prance the whole place, whatever it was. The circus would do a parade through every town they went through to say, "Hey, we're here. Let's come on and listen and watch the circus." But it was different back then. Again, they don't talk about the history at all. It's all business. Do your thing. And when you left, did they have any circumstance? You didn't get the gold watch after you were there for a year? I mean, they don't care, right?
I handled it the same way that a lot of others. I just disappeared in the night. I just got on an airplane and went back to New York. So.
Right. All right. Well, we had a great time talking with Arthur Wobig. We're talking about the circus and behind the scenes, and hopefully that opened the door and opened your eyes to a little something else that you see while you're seeing the circus in your hometown, wherever that may be. Thank you, Arthur. Had a great time with you. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks,
guys.
All right. We had a great time. We'll have you back to tell us that story, what was going on behind the scenes, why you really were at that circus. There's even more interesting stories then. Let's think about that. Right into Everything Old is New Again. Let us know if you have a suspicion what he was doing for real. All right, we're back. I just wanted to talk about the vendors for a moment. They are a totally different breed as well, right?
Yeah, it was never, ever socialized, hung out, knew where they were, what they did. They would sort of come in. It seemed like they were set up before we even got there because a lot of they would have the trucks, the tractor trailers, the semis would bring all their equipment in, and they were one of the highest paid of the employees, selling these little glow lights.
Right.
Okay.
Wow.
I mean, starting at the popcorn and the cotton candy and working your way up, these guys made some serious money.
Because the profit margin on those little lights have got to be huge, and everyone's got a little light. And one kid sees one have it, everyone's got to have that little light for $14.75.
And they were a weird breed. no different than any other section of this particular circus. But again, they made their money and sort of kept to themselves. So
interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you again, Arthur. We had a great time. We'll have you back. Welcome to the Rogues Gallery of Everything Old is New Again.